We have several very big news stories to share about the red-hot competition in the autonomous ride-hailing business. First, Bloomberg has reported that Elon Musk was actually initially expected to share more about Tesla's plans for their robotaxi. If it wasn't for two medical emergencies at the We Robot event, Elon was supposed to include more details about full self-driving for Tesla's semi-truck, more details about the ride-hailing app, and pricing for the software suites. I bet these might actually be shared at next week's earnings call instead. Second, we'll watch video of an interview of Uber's CEO where he said he'd love to partner with Tesla. Third, the founder of Waymo, Anthony Levandowski, also known as the godfather of autonomous driving, just said that he'd rather be in Tesla's shoes than in Waymo's shoes, and that Tesla has a major data advantage, having maybe 10,000 or maybe 1,000,000 times more data than Waymo. Finally, we'll watch Connor Cunningham from Melius Research explaining why he believes Tesla will eat Uber and Lyfts next year. I've got Brian White with me. Brian has a host of his own YouTube channel called Future Ozza. Check him out after we watch his show. He's got some deep dives on the Cybercab, very, very deep, explaining how it's designed and the details of the cost savings. Welcome, Brian.
That's great to be here. Yeah, there's so much to analyze and tear apart, and it's fun because the comments can sometimes introduce new ideas we hadn't thought of, and also some craziness. So that's fun.
Yeah. Well, I love it when these stories, like very obviously in the same theme, they all come together, right? So you got news about that Tesla, Elon was supposed to talk about the robotaxi, more about it, that he didn't. Then you've got the CEO of Uber, and you got the founder of Waymo. And we're going to review this a little bit more. So first news story is Bloomberg reported this, right? Of course, they titled their article, Tesla Optimus bots were remotely operated at Cybercab event. That was the main theme that they decided to go with. But actually, if you look at the last page of the article, look what they say. According to people familiar with the planning, so we don't know how accurate this is, Musk had been due to discuss a wider range of autonomous driving related items on stage. The presentation was going to include more details about developing autonomous technology for Tesla's semi-truck. So if you remember, that was actually leaked ahead of time, and it didn't happen. So that gives this credence that this actually might be right. He was supposed to give details of the app behind a future ride-hailing service and pricing for software suites, but he did not. They skipped over the material or removed it from the events. What happened was, and again, they don't explain why he did that. They just said, oh, he decided to do it. No, there was two medical emergencies. I was physically there. I saw that there was actually an ambulance. I saw two ambulances, and I saw one fire truck right there in the main stage. And that's why it was delayed for at least an hour, maybe even more. And in fact, Elon then tweeted out, right, there's an medical emergency. We're going to start shortly as soon as those things were left out. So that delayed the event for at least an hour or two. And so many of us were asking the question, did that just reduce the number of rides, or did it reduce the actual presentation? What's your thoughts on this news that we just found out, Brian?
So first of all, my thought is both. If you go back to your headline, it says Musk didn't disclose that they were being remotely operated. Well, right, except the bots disclosed it. Those were humans that were allowed to share that bit of information. Exactly. So it's not like, aha, we got you. Right, you caught us doing the thing that we just admitted that we're doing. So come on, do better. In terms of the delay, that happens, man. First of all, medical emergencies, if I was there, I would also have the vapors. So I get it. But it could be anything. It could be low blood sugar. It could be a million things. There were apparently over 2,000 people in attendance, plus all the staff. That's a lot of people. So the odds go up. Now, in terms of what was cut, I think both the drives had to be shortened and the presentation had to be shortened. It started very late. So it wouldn't surprise me if they said, okay, slides 26 through 40 were done. Just pull them. But as you know, we've got the earnings call coming up. These may be covered. They don't always like to do too much in terms of forward-looking statements at earnings call, but it wouldn't surprise me. That's just a week away. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And yeah, I don't think there was any massive revelation here, although I would very much like to see, I would have liked to have seen a more detailed presentation, more numbers, more hard facts. But hey, we got what we got.
Yeah. I mean, that was the main criticism. People said, oh, we want more details, but this is why. This is what happened. The other interesting thing that happened was about the bot. So according to a person familiar with the matter, right, this is the same kind of article here, the bot wasn't due to feature in last week's event at all. But then Elon had requested their inclusion about 3 weeks prior. So the late notice meant that there wasn't time to get the software up to speed, making remote operation necessary. Yeah. So the way they're positioned that was that, that's why they had to do remote operation.
That would lead me to believe that the semi portion was cut intentionally in advance and that they wanted something to just fill out the night. I think having the V4 hand on display was very exciting. If you knew what to look for, and people like Dr. Scott Walter definitely did. That many people there, surely someone knows what they're looking at, and that Dr. Scott fits the bill for sure. So I think, yeah, it's possible that it was pulled on purpose, and I don't know why. It could be a million reasons. It could be partnerships with trucking companies that would prefer to not have that out just yet. Don't know.
Yep. And then, it was seen as underwhelming because of the lack of technical details and vagueness on the plans for the robotaxi business. But now we've learned that, maybe he was planning to do it. I suspect highly that they're going to share this next week because, the earnings call is actually next week, October 23rd, right?
Crazy.
So it's
where
so
does the year
close.
go?
That they probably just said, you know what, what can you do? He ran out of time. There's medical emergencies, but we'll just share at the earnings call. That's what I'm hoping. And so maybe just a week later, we'll get what people were asking for, more information about the app and so forth. Maybe not, right? I don't know if they have to, but that's what apparently happened. Okay, so next is Uber CEO. So we've got, says competing with Elon is no easy matter and would love to partner with Tesla on robo-taxis. So he was interviewed. Let's watch this.
Competing with Elon Musk is no easy matter, and we take nothing for granted. We really want to partner with the autonomous industry. Ultimately, we think that autonomous technology can be safer, can make rides available more affordably to people all over the world. It's going to take some time for the technology to come into the main line, but we partner with Waymo, with Cruise, with Wave here in the UK. And our hope is that to the extent that Elon and Tesla build some great technology, when it's safe and ready to use, they plug it into the Uber network and we can all win together.
Will you have robotaxis on the Uber platform?
Well, we have robotaxis on the Uber platform today, for example, with Waymo and
Tesla.
We'll see. I think that's up to what Tesla does. We have a lot of Teslas on the platform. They're great EVs. Drivers love it. And to the extent that they're robo-Teslas, we love to have it on the platform. But if not, I don't think this is going to be a winner-take-all marketplace. We believe in the spirit of partnership. We'll see what Tesla does, and either we'll compete with them or we'll work with them or a combination thereof.
Yeah. What do you think, Brian?
I think he would be crazy to say anything else. It's clear that if this works, it will be a industry crusher. We will see the kinds of cost reductions that you would normally only see from SpaceX. Yeah, SpaceX is 30 to 70% cheaper on most payload deliveries, 90% cheaper in some instances. Starship's going to make it cheaper still. That's insane. That's a whole lot of savings. And the robotaxi is designed from ground zero, from the very first step, to be the cheapest thing to build because it doesn't include all the nonsense. You look at Waymo, they're starting with a fully built $50,000, $60,000 car and then just ignoring all the things that made it so expensive to add on $100,000 in modifications. You can't compete if a vehicle's supposed to last 150,000 miles and it costs 150,000 to acquire. That's $1 a mile right there before you've even put it on the road. I don't know how Uber is going to make money in this equation if they're competing against Tesla, who has their own vehicles in-house, but more power to them, I suppose.
Yeah. I think, like you said, there's nothing he can do. This is the strategy. You've got this ride-hailing, human-driven platform and you're succeeding. You've got the market, lead. You got this disruptive technology coming. What do? You got to partner with anybody who's willing to partner with you, and you don't know which one of them might become the leader. So you partner with all of them. I'm agnostic. I'll partner with everybody, including Tesla, please. And sounds like, of course, Tesla has not reached out to them, may never, but he's saying please. But he's not, can't come out as desperate. My point that I've been saying though the last few days is, I don't know why people don't take other executives. You got an executive here saying that competing with Elon Musk is no easy matter, and yet there's bears out there going, "Don't you know Waymo and Uber are going to eat their lunch?" And their own executives are telling you.
Exactly. Their executives are saying they don't even have a product and we're scared. So that's worth noting. And I think Uber has to ask, what can I bring to the table? And the only, we've got all these people who've already signed up on the app. Yeah. And there are people who don't like the app or the company. I don't think that's the selling point. I think if something is half the price, it doesn't need to have an existing user base. It will get it immediately. So what does Uber bring to the table? I'm hoping a big pile of money to field robotaxis more quickly than Tesla could on their own. That's the only way they're getting into this.
Uber could transition to buying Tesla robotaxi cybercabs and then becoming the fleet manager for them. And then, that's what they're going to need to do, right? And it's a completely different business than what they're doing. Kind of. They'll still use the app, but you know what I mean? They need to.
What are Uber's assets? They don't own cars. Yeah. They don't have they don't have drivers. They rent drivers. Mm-hmm. Their assets are all digital, and the biggest asset is going to be the software that drives itself.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talking about software that drives itself. There's they call the godfather of driverless cars. Anthony Levandowski. He founded Waymo really, really early on. He's a co-founder. Says Tesla has a major advantage in self-driving race. This is him. Famously, I think he was sued, right? When he stole Google's proprietary data and gave it to, I don't remember who, someone in China, I think. He has a bone to pick with them, but that doesn't mean he's wrong. Who has the most data? The company with 4 million, 5 million, 6 million cars out gathering data, or the company with a couple thousand. Now, you could argue that Waymo's data is in some way more valuable. Maybe it is. But is it 1 million times more valuable? It is not. There's no way. Again, this is somebody who's got credibility in the industry telling you, I'd rather be in Tesla's shoes than in Waymo's shoes. Google could stay ahead by cutting the cost of its tech and maybe buying a car company, but they need to move fast. And even then, you know better than anyone else how fast manufacturing factories and how quickly companies could actually, retrofit and move forward. So, Tesla has an incredibly strong position in autonomous vehicles right now. It's funny that we're seeing this now because obviously every article we've ever read, every expert supposedly saying to you in the past, right? We're so far behind Tesla. I'd rather be in Tesla's shoes than in Waymo's shoes. He's the engineer who co-founded Google's self-driving program in 2009. Jesus. Then named Project Chauffeur, now called Waymo. He's bullish on Tesla's overall position because of one key element, data. Tesla already has cars on the road, some of which are semi-autonomous, parking, lane switching, learning all the while, has the greatest fleet to do this. There's millions of Teslas out there that are constantly alerting, feeding back their data to Tesla, make the product better. And that's ultimately what's really going to be the differentiator here. You have the richest, most consistent data. Look at this. He says that Tesla has maybe 10,000 or maybe 1 million times more data than Waymo does in terms of all other scenarios of driving. So
has a Waymo ever seen a moose? I'm going to wager it has not.
I love it.
That's a real use case.
That's a good question. That's hilarious. That is actually true. But again, people say they don't need it, right? Waymo is already doing self-driving in these cities, but so can Tesla. And these are grid cities that are very, standard driving. So
San Francisco is a challenge. That is a very good place to stress test an autonomous vehicle. but it doesn't come across as stress when you're using remote operators to supervise the rides. That is not what we thought Waymo was doing. I was under the impression, based on the way they submit their data, that the car is 99, almost 100% on its own. And every once in a while, an operator would pop in to see what it's doing. And I believe that because they would do things crazy, like a dozen of them would get stuck in a cul-de-sac. Surely with humans watching that wouldn't happen, but it did. And then, the honking at 3 a.m. where they're just irritated that they're all bad drivers and they're honking at each other. Good work. But I guess the operators went home for the night is probably what happened. So we don't know. Just like criticizing the bots for being teleoperated, I have nothing but criticism for Waymo with their highly supervised drivers. They have real drivers doing the real driving, and it's crazy that people are still thinking if Waymo had what we were led to believe they have, they would already be in every city.
Exactly. Good point. All right, just to finish off this article, he had that checker pass, this guy. He left Google for Uber in 2016. Then that's when Google sued him because they claimed that he stole intellectual property. He was fired by Uber, later sentenced to 18 months in prison before being saved by a presidential pardon from Trump. So yeah, this guy, okay, maybe you can't trust him, but in terms of the tech, he knows what's going on. 2 years ago, he struck a more dour tone about the industry, accusing all the key players of offering nothing but glorified tech demos. So he's got his own new self-driving venture called Pronto, focuses on the trucking and mining industries. So maybe that's why he's now going to say it's self-driving is really, start to see it. Tesla's advantage. We couldn't go through this. Yeah, so that's about it. Maybe the front runner. While Tesla and Uber Waymo compete for tech supremacy, might be the front runner in the robotaxi right now. I don't know where that came from. I don't
right,
know.
with whose cars? They don't make cars, you guys. If anyone has one that genuinely works, then that's
this page looks like it came from the article itself, not from him.
Right.
Okay, so basically that's what he said. And then just a repeat of everything we just said here. Okay. So that's Waymo. Interesting. Elon replied to that tweet by Sawyer saying true. All right. Next topic here is this Connor Cunningham. He's a researcher, and he was interviewed. We'll watch this interview, and he's saying that rideshare companies could expect competition from Tesla over time. Might face competition from Tesla as soon as next year is what he's saying. So let's watch him.
As he mentioned, the lack of ride-hailing plan details has shares of Uber and Lyft absolutely surging today, with Uber hitting a 52-week high. It's up almost 10%, so is Lyft. But my next guest isn't cheering quite as loudly along with the rest of the street, saying both of these companies should, over time, expect more competition from Tesla, maybe as soon as next year. Joining me now is Connor Cunningham. He covers travel and transports at Melius Research. Connor, it's great to have you here. Kind of boil this down for us. Why do you actually see a threat kind of around the corner?
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me. The lack of detail around the ride-hailing application obviously was a big disappointment, but it seems inevitable at this point. We already have autonomous vehicles on the road with Waymo. Obviously, Uber has a relationship with them, but these cars are coming, and they're going to change the game on some level. So it's not that we obviously see the benefits to Uber and Lyft in the near term as the view starts to shift more back to the fundamentals, where there's a pretty compelling story there. But over the long term, competition should likely step up from here. There will be plenty of new entrants. You have a lot of big companies with a lot of money behind them looking to get into this space. Not just Tesla. You have Amazon and others. So it should be interesting over the next couple of years.
I'm curious. kind of can't wait to get details on the financials behind Uber's partnership with Waymo. Who's paying whom exactly what in order to kind of roll this out. You have a hold on both stocks with price targets around where they are right now. Don't know if you caught Jenny Harrington last hour on Uber, and she was saying, look, they're growing earnings or EPS, 100% this year and 40% next year and a 4.5% free cash flow yield. And she was like, all of those things alone make me want to own it, let alone, whatever may be coming down the pike. Is there some truth to that, at least in the near term?
Yeah, I mean, these are two companies that are in a secular growth industry. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity for them to grow, over the next couple of years. They talk themselves about, 15% gross booking CAGR over the next several years. There's plenty of opportunity to just continue to grow the share there in terms of overall just driving up frequency and adding new guests. Like the penetration rates on all this stuff is still really, really low. The core business itself remains strong, but to Phil's point earlier, Tesla's going to talk about this every time they can. They see the opportunity as well within that business segment. So it's not necessarily that I think the fundamentals are weak there. It's just the fact that there's going to be potential incremental competition, and that should, in theory, weigh on the multiple. Obviously, we didn't get a lot of detail around when all that's going to start to happen, and that's likely the driver behind the stock in the near term. But it's coming at some point, so we will see.
Yeah,
I want to pause it there because I think that's there's people out there who says, okay, this is secular growth, right? These guys are actually growing. Uber, the fundamentals are there, cash flow, earnings, everything's growing. I don't know, personally, I don't want to be investing in anything that has a potential disruptive technology that could wipe out your business pretty quickly. Now they're going to go, yeah, it's going to be fine for 2 years. Then we'll think about it then. That's fine. That I get. So people who just want short-term growth and it's going to happen.
And he said, look, these companies are agnostic as to which technology they use. And that's a recurring theme that I have to kind of remind people is they'll say, well, these companies won't use them because they don't like Elon. Look, it's business. You don't have to like your business partners. You just have to make money. That's all they care about. Can Uber make money by buying a Tesla robotaxi? Well, if the alternative is a Waymo robotaxi, it's going to be the only chance because Waymos have too many ingrained inefficiencies, systemic inefficiencies. If Waymo was actually as close to done as they say they are, they would right now be in a different kind of partnership. They recently announced a partnership with Hyundai where they will buy cars and then have them retrofitted with the sensors. No, that's the wrong approach. If you're really going to be buying 100,000 cars in 3 years, you need to be designing your own purpose-built robotaxi that has none of the controls, all of the cost savings, so that you can have a $30,000 vehicle, or at least a 60 or 80 instead of 150, and they're not. And that tells you everything you need to know. 2 years ago, we watched the co-president of Waymo depart, and I said, they're not done. They're nowhere close to done. He said, no, they're almost there. The guy in charge doesn't leave 5 minutes before it goes wide. That's not a thing that happens. So yeah, Waymo is still in a holding pattern. They're getting closer to the runway, but they ain't there yet.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point. The relationship with Hyundai, it's Waymo buying Hyundai cars and then Waymo retrofitting it so that they can use it more tests in their, I think there's only 700 cars that they have right now in multiple cities total. And it should be the other way around. Hyundai, if you got Waymo technology so good at this point, shouldn't Hyundai be licensing and buying it and then retrofitting it already as many cars as they have as they roll it out? That's not what's happened yet. So it's still very much early. Yeah. So we're just talking about, the growth of Uber and Lyft, what's going to happen. Yeah. So, right. It's like some people are very willing to take the risk. Maybe it's not going to happen for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So let's go ahead and keep, make money because it's going to keep growing for now. But
well, they were wise to not go all in 10 years ago. Had they done that, they would be out of business. That's one of the reasons Apple gave up is FSD is not here. We're already $10 billion in, pull the plug. It's like, it's like when Dyson decided to build their electric car, but pinned the whole thing on solid state batteries. And they got into it and realized this car will never be sold at a price that is profitable and desirable. pull the plug. And they were
Right.
billions into that. So they bet on the wrong horse. Sometimes you have to do the thing that's intermediate to get to the ultimate goal.
Okay, let's listen to the rest of this. I like Connor Cunningham. I think he's pretty good in his
Take your
thinking.
point that each ensuing event makes it a little bit more real, and we know he'll roll things out maybe before they're ready for prime time. So at some point, it's going to be on the road. You are looking at the economics of this. A lot of investors and analysts are as well. Just talk to us about when Musk says the cost per mile for Cybercab will be 20 cents. What does that say to you?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, just the current cost per mile of a standard car ownership right now is sitting around like 65 cents. So, if you can get to a Cybercab of, 20 to 30 cents overall, like that's obviously would be a benefit to the consumers out there in general. Uber and Lyft right now, cost per mile is like, depending on where you're riding, is about $1 to $2. And a lot of that goes to the driver itself. Over 70% of that goes to the driver right now. So if you can remove that driver, there's obviously a huge economic benefit to both these companies. But again, the question is like, who's going to end up owning it? Does Uber and Lyft need to go out and order a significant amount of Cybercabs themselves? It would change the whole cash flow profile of the companies, the earnings trajectory, and so on. So they go from basically asset light to asset heavy, and so on. So those are all the questions that need to be answered along the way. Are these companies going to have to maintain fleets and whatnot? So
Exactly.
plenty of questions still to come, and obviously, without a lot of significant answers from Tesla yesterday.
No, I appreciate you thinking through this and those economics as well. Curb your enthusiasm, I think, is the message here. Connor, thanks for your time. Good to see you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Connor Cunningham with Melius.
So I'm going to jump in real quick and say Uber is not $1 a mile, and it is also not $2. I have never taken a ride for $1. I think the lowest I've ever paid is maybe 3.5 or 4 in the US or in Europe. In Mexico, it's much cheaper. It probably is less than $1 a mile there, but it is. But in the US, it is very. I did a 50-mile ride, 80-mile ride from Ocala to Orlando, and it was $220. And it wasn't peak times. That's just what it cost. I've done rides that were only 5 miles, and I think I've paid, I don't know, $15, $20. It's outrageous. So I'm not sure where that number comes from.
That's a good point. I just looked it up. From my house to the airport cost me $60, $70. It used to be under $50. And I was like, oh my God, it's cheaper than a taxi. Now it's more expensive than a taxi. And it's like
How many miles is that?
14 miles away.
14 miles for
So
60
that's
to, yeah.
$3. Yeah.
That's
$2 or $3. But anyways,
No, 2 would be 28.
Yeah. So we're going to do a show
So it's
on
like-
your channel. And so people should look that. We're going to go deeper into the dollar per mile, and we're going to go deeper into Cybercab unit economics and so forth. But great, these guys he's expecting it. It's a reality. It's coming. But then she ends it by saying, curb your enthusiasm. Okay.
And then the music plays. I can hear it right now in my head.
She still says curb your enthusiasm, man. He just showed you a friggin' Cybercab. You don't believe him when he says 20 cents, but he's done this before. So we'll see what happens, where that goes. Thank you so much. So that was a great show. We just covered Uber and Waymo and, the competition between them. And then information that maybe next week we're going to learn more about Tesla's app and the specifics people wanted. Maybe we won't. I don't know if we need to at this point. Personally, I don't need it. I know people want it, but what's the difference? So we'll see. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Brian. Check him out. There's some great shows that he's been putting out on Futuraza. We're going to do, like I said, deeper dives in Cybercab and other and shows. One of the things he's really got, Brian, your best out there is vehicles. You know how to break down the vehicles, the design, the manufacturing. And of course, that's because your expertise in the factories is your thing. So check him out at Futuraza. Thanks, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.